Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Gittin Samachay Amar Aleph. We're going to start Samachay Amar Aleph, 4 lines from the top. And we said in yesterday's Daf that Shmuel's position, as explained by Rav Chisda, that a minor, even if he's able to return a lost object after an hour, and even if he knows how to throw away the stones and keep the nuts, he's old enough to know that. Nevertheless, he's able to do something for himself, but not for other people. So the Gemara challenges this position. He's able to acquire himself, but he can't acquire something on behalf of somebody else. Gemara raises a question from a Mishnah from Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni is the secondary type. You're supposed to bring this produce and eat it in Jerusalem, but you can also redeem it. If you're going to redeem it and transfer its value to money and then bring that money to Jerusalem, then you have to add on 1/5 to the value when you redeem it. But that's only if you redeem it yourself. But if you redeem it through other people, if somebody else redeems it for a friend, then he doesn't have to add on that 1/5 extra because it's not his own produce. He's just redeeming other produce. So the Gemara says in today's Daf Yomi, the Gemara challenges Shmuel's teaching, Masiv Rav Avia Marimin al Meiser Sheni, that we're allowed to do a harama. Harama is loosely translated as a legal fiction. It's where we use the halacha, use the full capacity of the halacha in order to accomplish our goal, even though it's not straightforward. So you can use this harama al Meiser Sheni. Use this, so to speak, legal trick to accomplish our goals with respect to the Meiser Sheni. And how do we do that? Omer Adam with no vito hagadolim, a person could say to his children, if they're to his son and daughter who are adults, or la'avdol v'shivchaso ha'ivrim, where he's able to say to his Hebrew male and female slaves, he's allowed to say to them, take this money and then use this money and redeem this Meiser Sheni, and then they could do that without the extra 1/5. So basically, he can give money to his children or to his slaves, and they're going to redeem the Meiser Sheni. We're talking about Hebrew slaves. So then they're going to give him right back to Meiser Sheni, and that way he saves 1/5. But the Gemara says, "Hi shifcha yachidami." But this shifcha, what are we talking about? This Hebrew slave, either is saros. It can't be that she's an adult, because if she has the signs of being an adult, she's gone through puberty. My baigabe, why is she still a slave? The halacha is that a woman, when she becomes 12 years old, she can't be enslaved. A Jewish slave, she can't be enslaved like that anymore. It must be that she hasn't yet produced the signs of being an adult, and so that's why she's a minor, and yet she can acquire it on behalf of others. Why is this called a case of acquiring on behalf of others? That's a question. So the Rashi's answer seems to be, or the Ramban, the Rishonim, some of them seem to say that since the redemption of the fruits of the Meiser Sheni is like you're meriting on behalf of others, because the Meiser Sheni is the money of the temple. That's what the Ramban says. So therefore, when she redeems the fruits, it's like she's taking it out from the domain of the Gavoa, the domain of the holy, and bringing it to the domain of the owners. That's the Ramban's explanation. But it's the Gemara's assumption that her redemption is like being redeemed on behalf of others. And so therefore we see she's able to do it. So there's the question on Shmuel, says a minor can't redeem it on behalf of others. Gemara says, no, I'm here. What are we talking about? What's the scenario over here that we're referring to? The Meiser Bisman Hazeh, the Rabbana. Meiser Sheni nowadays is rabbinic. And so therefore, even though we say that a minor can't acquire something on behalf of others, in a case where the only requirement really is a rabbinic requirement to bring Meiser Sheni, there we're going to be lenient. Gemara says, wait 1 second. Is there really a rabbinic? Is there even a rabbinic Amma Ivriya today? Can't be. There's no such thing as an Amma Ivriya today. There's no such thing as a Hebrew maid servant anymore. Matanya ain't evid ivri noeg elbis mancha yovel noeg. There's only a Amma Ivriya. There's only a Hebrew slave in the time when there's a Jubilee year. We don't have a Jubilee year anymore. So why are we saying that this is the case? That there's if there's a case of Meiser, if there's no Meiser Sheni anymore, there's also no Amma Ivriya. So how can we say that that's a circumstance? So the Gemara says, what we're talking about is the Atzit She'eino Nakav D'Rabbanan. We're talking about a flower pot that doesn't have a hole in it. So the food that grows there is only chayav, it's only obligated to do tithing rabbinically. And so that's why we're going to allow the minor to acquire it on behalf in this circumstance. So then Rava comes along and says his halachos about a minor. He says, Gimel midos bekata. Rava says, since we're talking about a minor acquiring on behalf of other people, I'm going to tell you three attributes about a minor. First of all, tzror v'zarko, egos or notlo. If he's old enough to take the stones, throw them away, and keep the nuts, zocho atzmo vein zocho acher. He can acquire something for himself, but not for others. That seems to be consistent with the statement that Shmuel made. But Shmuel extended it even to a case where he knows how to return an object. But Rava didn't say that. Kenegdam beketana, and corresponding to this stage, is by a minor girl, miskadeshes lemiyun, that she's able to be betrothed at that age to the status of miyun, meaning to say that if her father died and she's married off by her mother and her brother, if she's below the age of being able to recognize the nut from the stone, then they can't marry her at all. But if she's above that age, then they can marry her off, but she has the ability to reject the marriage before she's 12, and then the marriage is terminated even without a get. Let's say they're pu'utos, which Rashi says is a dispute. We say they're like 6 and 7, kabar shit to kabar tamne, like 6 or like 8. So basically between the age period, that their sales are valid as it relates to movable objects. Corresponding to that is by a minor girl, miskareshes b'kidushe avia. That a minor girl, when she's that age, if her father betrothed her, she's able to accept a get, even though she's a minor. She's able to be biblically divorced, even though she was biblically betrothed. She's able to accept the get because she knows when she gets the get. At that point, she knows she doesn't have to go back to her husband's home. So that's the age required. And then we state higiu onos nadarim. The third stage is once she reaches the age of making a vow, nidreya neder v'hekdesh hekdesh. Once she reaches the age of making a vow, her vow is a valid vow, and her hektish is a valid hektish. Meaning to say, at that stage, she can make vows and consecrate something to the temple. What does that mean? Higiu nas to nidarim. Rashi says that's 1 year before she's actually bat mitzvah. As the Rashi quotes the Mishnah Mesechas Nida, when she's 11 years old, her vows are checked. And if she knows to whom she's vowing, then her vow is valid and her consecrations are going to be valid. Ukinegdam b'ketana, and at that same age, choletzes. If she brought these simanim, she brought the signs of puberty, but she hasn't reached the age of 12, nevertheless, we're going to say that since she's brought the simanim at that time, she's going to be able to get chalitza, even though she's not 12, she can get the chalitza once she's 11 years old, if she has the simanim. But you can't sell the assets of your father if you inherited his real estate. Rashi says, you have to be 20 years old. We see this concept of 20 throughout the Shas. 20 is somebody when he's able to get bar onshin. That's when he's able to get punishments. Only once they reach the age of 20. So we see from here that that's when you're going to be old enough to be able to sell the real estate of your father that you inherited. Kitana sha'amra, next Mishnah. Kitana sha'amra is kabli giti. Let's say the minor girl says to her agent, I want you to receive the get on my behalf. Eino get achiagia get liyada. It's not going to be a get until she actually receives the get, because a minor can't appoint an agent. All this time, if the husband wants to recant, he can't because she's not divorced until she actually gets it. Because a minor can't make an agent. But if her father said, save his Kabbalah Biti, if her father appointed the agent of Kabbalah, said, go receive the get on my behalf, then once the father appoints it, then the husband, if he gives it to the father's agent, he can't recant. Let's say the husband says, give this get to my wife in this place. And the agent gave it to her in a different place. We're going to say it's possible, it's disqualified, because the husband doesn't want him to mock him in that place. He cares about this place. That's where he specifically wants to do it. But if he says she's in that place, meaning he's just being like a Mari Makom, he's just showing where she is, but then the agent gives in a different place, we're going to say it's kosher, because there the place was not a part of Kapeda, wasn't being so specific. He just wanted to tell the agent where she was. Let's say the woman says it's Kabbalah Gita b'makom poni. Let's say the woman says to her agent, receive for me to get in this place, and the agent went and got in another place, possible. Just like the husband, in this case, the Tanakhama says it's disqualified. Whereas Rebbe Lezer master, and the Gemara is going to say, why does Rebbe Lezer say it's kosher in this case? Let's say she says, Havi giti mimakom poni. She says, bring me my get from this place. But he brought it from a different place. We're going to say it's kosher under those circumstances. Amara says, Rebbe Lezer, hold on one second. Why in the first case does he agree to Tanakama that the husband is exact, he has a kapeda that needs to be exactly where he said it? Where in the Seifa, in the case of the woman, he's saying no, that she's divorced, it's kosher, even if it was in a different place. Why does he draw this distinction? And he argue only in the latter case. Gemara explains, so because since the husband has the ability to initiate the divorce and affect the divorce, therefore he can be careful, but she's going to be divorced against her will. So therefore she wouldn't be as particular. She's just showing him the place of where she is. So that's why we say that there's a kapeda only by him, but since she's being divorced against her will, how does she know where it's going to be? So therefore there's no kapeda on her part. Gemara says, next Mishnah, she says, bring me my get. Then if she says, bring my get, and she's married to a Kohen, so the woman can eat the truma while she's married to a Kohen, and ochelas betruma achi get liyada, because until she gets the get, she's married to him. So then she can eat the truma until the get reaches her hand. But if she says, it's Kabbalah Giti, let's say she says to her agent, I want you to go and receive the get on my behalf, then asur le'achal betruma miyad. Then as immediately she can't eat the truma because maybe the agent got it right away, and so therefore she can't eat the truma. It's Kabbalah Giti b'makom poni. Let's say she says, I want you to receive my get in this place. Then, since she's saying only get it over there, then we're going to say that since she didn't get it yet in that place, she can eat the truma. The Gemara is going to question this case. Rashi says, how is it a get? Since she said, I want you to get it in this specific place, and she got it in a different place. So the Gemara is going to ask that question. Whereas Rebbe Lezer says she's immediately prohibited in that case. Rebbe Lezer otzer miyad, because Rebbe Lezer is consistent with his logic, because he says that she doesn't even need to get it in that place. Wherever she got it, it will be a kosher get. And so therefore, she would be prohibited to get it, to eat the truma immediately, because maybe the agent would get it immediately upon leaving her place. So the Gemara says, well, in this case, where she says, except for me to get in this place, and then she can eat she can eat the truma until the get goes to that place. But the Gemara says, "V'gita miyahave," meaning so even if she got the get in a different place, even if the agent got the get in a different place, she's not divorced until she gets to that place, until the agent gets to that place. But then she would be divorced. But why? The Amras Reisha didn't Tanakama say in the first clause, "Well, avegita." It's not a get under those circumstances. So the Gemara says, "Lo tzricha the Amra way." No, we're talking about a case where she said to him, Iskabali Gita b'mata machasya. She said, this is what she said to the husband. Sometimes she said, receive my get in the place called Mata Machasya. The Zimnin, the Meshkachas of the Bavel. And sometimes he's in Babylon. So, meaning to say, and this is what she was saying to him, Mishkal Koheche Mishkachas Shakomine. Wherever, take it, wherever you find them, take it from him. But Dita, Mia Lo Have, but the get on top of 65b, but really the get, it's not going to be valid get until you run Mata Machasa. That's what she's actually saying. Whereas Rebbe Lazar says on top of 65b, Rebbe Lazar says it's prohibited immediately because he says that there's no kpeda on her part. So therefore, wherever she gets it, it's going to be divorced immediately, and so therefore she can't eat the truma immediately. Gemara says, well, pshita, it's obvious Rebbe Lazar's position. She's just showing him the place. There's no kpeda there, so of course she can't eat it immediately. Gemara says, no, it's tzricha da amrei zila mizrach. No, we need Rebbe Lazar here. The chiddush is where she says to the agent, go to the east of the mizrach, because my husband's in the east, so go there and get it. Vika'azo amarav, and the agent went to the west. So what you had said, Mal Tema, b'marav Halesa, that he's not in the west, and so therefore she could continue to eat the truma without concern. So Kamash Malon, so we're going to say no. Rabbi Lazar is saying you might have thought Delma Bahade de Ka'azal Megas guys you might have thought Rabbi Lazar is saying you might have thought, well, maybe he'll meet him right away and give her the get. So we don't say that. We don't have to be concerned about that. So the Gemara says, somebody says, so the Gemara is going to be a question. Again, Rabbi Lazar says there's no Kpeda. In this case, the Chum say there would be Kpeda. Kpeda is this particular concern that you are exact with your language. So what about the following scenario? Omer Lashlucho, we know that a person can't walk beyond the 2,000 amos on Shabbos and Yontif of the Tchum unless they make an Eruv Techumin. They have to put some food there. So a person says to his agent, make for me this Eruv Techumin, but Arav Li B'Tamarim. Make the Eruv for me with dates. The Eruv will be Grogeris, and the person makes the Eruv with figs. The Grogeris, the Eruv will be Tamarim. We said make it with figs, and the person made it with dates. So Tani Chada Eruvo Eruv. One person says it's valid. Presumably there was no Kpeda, so this is like Rebbe Lazar, presumably. Vetanya Idach ain't Eruvo Eruv. And the other one, the other price says it's not binding. It's not an Eruv. So presumably that's like the Tanakama here, who says there's Kpeda. So the Gemara first says, okay, we have these two contradictory prices. So Rava says, Lakasha, Rabbanan, Rabbi Lazar. So one's Rabbanan, one's Rabbi Lazar. Rabbanan Damri Kpeda. Once the price says no good, it's like the Rabbanan would say it's Kpeda. And Rabbi Lazar, Damar Mari Mokamilo. It's like Rabbi Lazar who's just saying he's Mari Mokam, so therefore it's kosher. Gemara says, the Rav Yosef argues with Rabba Chavrusa, and he says, Havaha Rabbanan. No, in both cases, it's the Rabbanan who say that normally there's Kpeda. So why in this case is it okay? So he says, Rav Yosef says, Havaha Rabbanan, Kam B'Shalo, Kam B'Shal Chavero. In one case, it's his own fruit, and so therefore he's not going to have Kpeda, he's not going to care. But one case is his friends, and so therefore, since it's his friends gave him permission to use one of its fruits, but not the others. So that's what Rav Yosef is saying. She says, "Hi, Dikatani ain't no Erev." When we say it's not an Erev, could go the the friend gave him permission to use the dates. And he says to his friend, use for me these dates. And so for sure there's a kapeda because the figs, he didn't give him permission. So Abaye says to his Rabbi Yosef, but what about the next price? He says to his agent, go make for me an Erev. Put my Erev in the Gemara's assumption is he's saying, put my Erev in the tower. And the agent goes and puts it in the chicken coop. b'shovach, or he says erev b'shovach v'erev b'migdal, or it does the opposite to Tanya chada erev erev Tanya idach ein erev erev. One bride says it's good, and an erev, and the other one says not. So isn't this a dispute between Rab Hanan who say paid and Rab Elazar say it's not? So the Gemara says, no, hasamai shalo shal chavero ika, and the Gemara says there you can't say it's one belongs to him and the other one belongs to his friend. The Gemara says no, hasam nami you could say that ika peri de migdal peri de shuvach. You could really say, he doesn't say put it in the migdal. He says make for me an erev from the fruits that he has in that migdal, and he goes and does it from the fruits that his friend has in the shovach, in the dove coat. So that's what he's saying. It's the same dispute as the same distinction as before, and it's not a case of paid Rebbe Elazar versus the Rabbana. So the Gemara says the next Mishnah, Omer Kisfu Gela Ishki. Somebody says, write the get and give it to my wife. Kisfu Get Utanu Ishki, write the get and give it to my wife. Gershua, we're going to say she's divorced. Kasvu Igeras Utanua, write for her a letter and give it to her. Then if he says write for a letter and give it to her, that's the assumption. The assumption is expression of a get. So then the next possibility is patrua parnasua asua kanimus. Release her, support her, do for her like the law. Asua karai, lo amarkum. Those are not expressions of giving a get, and she's not divorced. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan Shachua Shavkua Tarchua. If he uses these expressions, like send her away, Hareo Yachtavu V'yitnu, that's a get. Basically, write it for her and give it to her. Patrua Parnasua. But if he uses those expressions, Asua Kanimas, Asua Karai, lo amarkum, then it's not a get. But you have to use the certain language. Tanya, Rabbi Natsan Omer, Patrua. Tvarav Kayamin, that if he says, hold on one second, hold on, give me 1 second, I want to open the door. Open the door for our friend Bill, and then I could come in. I saw him coming here. Okay, so if he says Patrua, good morning, Bill. So he says Patrua Dvarav Kayamin, but Pitrua, here, Bill. Boker Tov. If he says Patrua, his words are valid. If he says Pitrua, that is not a valid way to release her. Lo Amar Klum. So Patrua, that it's an expression of a command. But if he says Pitrua, that's in the past if he didn't say anything, because maybe he's really just saying release her from her debt, and so it's not the expression of divorce her. Amar Rava, so Rava says Rabbi Nasan de Bavlahu Dayak bein Petrua Patrua. Tana Didan de Bar Yisrael Hu Dayak. Rabbi Nasan was a Babylonian, so he was able. And so he was able to understand that there was a distinction, but we are from Israel. We don't make this distinction, whether it's in the active or passive voice. So the Gemara's question: we're in the bottom of 65b, very bottom. He says, kick her out, abandon her, release her, all these cases, maho ilula, or bring her out. Ma, what's the law? Asula kadas, or do for her like the law. What's the law in all these cases? The Gemara says, Pashat miyachad, at least answer one of these cases. The Tanya, Asula kadas, Asula kanimus, Asula karoi. If he says make for according to the law, he said nothing. Lo markum, he's actually said nothing, so she's not divorced. So now we go to the last Mishnah on the daf. Barishona ayu omrim. At first they used to say ayot bekolar. So he's being brought out to be killed by the king. V'amar kisvu gelishti. He says, write this get for my wife. Then we assume that he doesn't just mean write it. He means, even though he didn't say give it, we assume that he was so afraid he didn't emphasize his words, and we could understand what he really meant to say. Chazru Omar, then they go back and they say, Afa Mefaresh Vayodse B'Shayara. Then we're going to say, even somebody who is Mefaresh and Yodse B'Shayara, even though he's going on a caravan, we're going to assume that he means to give her the get. Rishon Shizuri says, Afa Mesukan, also somebody who's in danger. We're going to say that even though they just say kisvu, or somebody whose life is sick, we said even though they just say kisvu, even though they just said write it, they mean to nu as well, they mean give it. Now the Gemara tells us, Geniva, this is the fourth time we have Geniva mentioned here in our Masechta, very prominent figure, this controversial figure. Yotzi B'Kolar, he was going out from the prison, he was being brought out to be punished, maybe executed. So why was he being killed? Because the Gemara told us, remember on Zayin Amud Aleph, the Mar Ukva sent a question to Rebbe Lazar, the people who are standing over me and I could give them over to the king, should I do so? And Rebbe Lazar responded, Amarti Eshmera Darkai Mechato Bolshoni, Eshmera Lafi Machsom Ba'od Rasho Negdi, meaning to say, even though that he's wicked, be quiet. So Mar Ukva said, yeah, but they're harassing me, I can't handle it. So then Rebbe Lazar said, okay, be quiet, Hashem will do it, meaning just go to the base of Medrash every day and he'll be taken care of on his own. And the Gemara says that this matter went out from Rebbe Lazar, and immediately they captured Geniva and they put him in the kolar. So we see, because he was harassing Mar Ukva, was the Av Bezdin. And so therefore the Gemara earlier and back on 2 dapim ago, they called him a Palga. So we see Geniva is finally getting punished. But when he was going out, we know he's a little bit a controversial figure because we see he gave good advice. He knew the Torah. So here too, when he was being brought out, what did he say? He said, Amar Habu Arba Me'azuzi or Rabbi Avina. He wanted to make sure he paid his debts. Pay Rabbi Avina Mechamra Dinar Panya, from my wine that I have in the Harpanya. And Amar Rabbi Zera says, Dara Rabbi Avina was Silte. And he says, well, we'll stop here. We'll pick this up, God willing. Tomorrow's daf, we'll stop here, but right in the middle of starting the story of Geniva. Shekayach to everybody.